The small town of Oak Ridge wasn't known for much. It had one main street with shops that had been there for generations, a park where kids played until the streetlights came on, and enough history to fill the tiny museum near the town hall. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where secrets were hard to keep, and where 12-year-old Mia Chen was trying her best not to die of boredom during summer break. "Mom, there's nothing to do," Mia complained, sprawled across the living room couch, her dark hair falling over the armrest as she hung her head upside down. "Can I at least go to the mall with Lily?" Mrs. Chen looked up from her laptop and shook her head. "The mall is an hour away and I have work to finish. Why don't you help your grandfather organize his attic like you promised last week?" Mia groaned dramatically but knew there was no point arguing. Her grandfather lived just 3 houses down, in the old Victorian home that had been in their family for generations. He was getting too old to climb the narrow attic stairs and the space needed sorting before winter came. "Fine," she sighed, sliding off the couch. "But if I find a ghost up there, I'm coming straight home." Her mother laughed. "Take your phone and text me when you get there." The summer heat hit Mia like a wall as she stepped outside. The sidewalk shimmered in the late June sun, and she could hear the buzz of lawnmowers and the distant shouts of kids playing in sprinklers. Oak Ridge might be boring, but at least it was safe enough for her to walk around alone. Her grandfather's house stood tall against the blue sky, its dark green paint peeling slightly around the window frames. Wind chimes tinkled softly on the porch as Mia knocked on the door. "It's open," called a gravelly voice from inside. Grandpa Chen sat in his favorite armchair by the window, a book open on his lap and half-moon glasses perched on his nose. His face lit up when he saw Mia. "How my favorite granddaughter comes to visit the old man." Mia rolled her eyes but couldn't help smiling. "I'm your only granddaughter, Grandpa, which makes you my favorite by default," he winked. "Your mother sent you to deal with the attic?" "Yeah, she says I promised, but I don't remember promising." Her grandfather laughed. "The memory is selective at your age. When you're as old as me, it just stops working altogether." He set his book aside and pointed to a door at the end of the hallway. "The key is hanging next to it. Be careful up there, lots of dust and probably some spiders." Mia made a face. "Great." The key was old and brass, turning stiffly in the lock. When she pushed the door open, cool air rushed down the narrow staircase. Mia flipped the light switch and a single bulb illuminated the wooden steps. She climbed slowly, testing each step. The attic was bigger than she expected, stretching the entire length of the house with sloped ceilings that made her feel like she was in a strange tent. Dust particles danced in the beams of sunlight that streamed through 2 small round windows. Cardboard boxes, old furniture, and trunks were stacked everywhere, creating a maze of forgotten things. "This is going to take forever," Mia muttered to herself, pulling her hair into a ponytail. She started with the boxes nearest the stairs, opening them to find old clothes, Christmas decorations, and photo albums. Her grandfather had told her to sort everything into 3 piles: keep, donate, and trash. Most things were going into the keep pile. Her grandfather wasn't good at letting things go. After an hour of working, Mia's t-shirt stuck to her back with sweat despite the attic's relative coolness. She sat down on an old trunk to take a break, wiping dust from her forehead with her arm. That's when she noticed the bookshelf tucked into the corner. Unlike everything else in the attic, it seemed organized with books standing neatly in rows. Curious, she walked over and ran her finger along the spines. Most were old, their titles faded, but one caught her eye. A small leather-bound journal wedged between 2 larger books. Mia pulled it out carefully. The leather was soft and worn, the pages yellowed with age. There was no title, just a strange symbol embossed on the cover. Something like a compass rose, but with additional markings she didn't recognize. She opened it, expecting to find her grandfather's handwriting, but instead discovered pages filled with an elegant script that looked nothing like his. The journal was dated 1872, way before her grandfather was born. Flipping through, she found sketches of buildings, notes about the town, and what looked like poems or rhymes. One page near the end was bordered with intricate drawings. In the center, written in slightly larger letters, was what looked like a riddle. When shadows align with the founder's design, seek where the eagle faces the pine. Count 7 stones from the water's edge. Look beneath the window's ledge. When sun and moon share the sky as one, the path to the secret has begun. Weird, Mia whispered, tracing the words with her fingertip. Find anything interesting? Mia jumped, nearly dropping the journal. Her grandfather stood at the top of the stairs, leaning on his cane. "Grandpa, you scared me. Should you be climbing these stairs?" He waved her concern away. "I've been climbing these stairs for 50 years. I'm not going to stop now." He nodded at the journal in her hands. "I see you found old Thomas Chen's journal." "Who's Thomas Chen?" "My great-great-grandfather. One of the first Chinese immigrants to settle in this area. He helped build the courthouse downtown." Her grandfather made his way carefully across the attic and lowered himself onto the trunk Mia had been sitting on earlier. He was quite the mystery man, according to family stories. Mia held up the journal. "Did you read this?" "There's a weird riddle in it." Her grandfather's eyes lit up. "Ah, the famous riddle. Yes, I've read it many times. So has half the town over the years." "What do you mean?" "That riddle has been something of a local legend. Thomas mentioned a treasure in his other writings, something important to the town's history that he hid somewhere. People have been trying to solve that riddle for generations." Mia's boredom evaporated instantly. "A treasure? Like gold?" Her grandfather chuckled. "Nobody knows. Could be gold. Could be documents. Could be nothing at all, just an old man's joke. The Historical Society has had a copy of that riddle for decades, but no one's ever figured it out." "Have you tried?" Mia asked, suddenly excited. "When I was much younger, yes. So did your mother, actually, when she was about your age. It's something of a family tradition to give it a try." He winked at her. "But don't get your hopes up. Some very smart people have been stumped by it." Mia looked back at the journal with new interest. "A real mystery. Right here in boring old Oak Ridge. Can I borrow this?" "Of course. It belongs to the family and your family. Just be careful with it. It's very old." That night, Mia couldn't sleep. The riddle kept running through her mind. She'd shown it to her parents at dinner, and they'd smiled knowingly. "I remember being obsessed with that when I was a kid," her mother said. "I was convinced I was going to find Thomas's treasure and be famous." "Did you ever figure any of it out?" Mia asked. Her father laughed. "Your mother had all sorts of theories. She dragged me all over town the summer we started dating, looking for eagles and pine trees. The courthouse has an eagle statue out front," her mother explained, "and there used to be a huge pine tree in the park across the street. But we never found anything. The Historical Society even brought in some puzzle expert from the university once," her father added. He couldn't make sense of it either. Now, staring at her ceiling in the dark, Mia felt a determination growing inside her. Everyone thought this riddle was impossible. All the adults in town, even experts, had tried and failed. But maybe they were missing something. Maybe they were overthinking it. Or maybe they didn't have some piece of information that was needed. Either way, Mia decided she was going to solve it. Summer had just started, and now she had the perfect project to keep her busy. The next morning, she took the journal to the kitchen table and copied the riddle into her notebook while eating breakfast. Her mother peered over her shoulder. "Getting an early start on your treasure hunt?" "I'm just curious," Mia said, trying to sound casual. "Do you know what this part means?" "When sun and moon share the sky as one?" Her mother thought for a moment. "Some people thought it meant a solar eclipse, but there hasn't been one visible here since Thomas's time, as far as I know." "What about the founder's design?" "Who founded Oak Ridge?" "William Oakley in the 1850s. He designed the original layout of the town, including the courthouse where your great-great-grandfather worked." Her mother smiled. "The Historical Society has all this information. Why don't you visit the museum? Mrs. Patel runs it now, and she knows everything about local history." That was actually a good idea. Mia finished her breakfast quickly and packed the journal carefully in her backpack. The Oak Ridge Historical Society Museum was housed in a small building next to the town hall. Despite living in Oak Ridge her whole life, Mia had only been there once on a school field trip in 3rd grade. She remembered being bored by the old photographs and dusty displays. Now, though, she pushed open the door with a sense of purpose. A small bell jingled, announcing her arrival. The museum was empty except for an older woman arranging pamphlets at the front desk. "Hello?" the woman said, looking up with a smile. "Welcome to the Oak Ridge Historical Society Museum." "Oh, it's Mia Chen, isn't it? How's your grandfather doing?" "He's good, Mrs. Patel. Still climbing attic stairs even though he probably shouldn't." Mrs. Patel laughed. "That sounds like him. What brings you here today? Summer research project?" "Sort of." Mia hesitated, then decided to be direct. "I found my great-great-grandfather's journal in my grandpa's attic. The one with the riddle about a hidden treasure. Mrs. Patel's eyes widened. Thomas Chen's journal? My goodness, I didn't realize your grandfather still had the original. We only have photocopies of a few pages. Do you know anything about the riddle? Has anyone ever come close to solving it? Oh my, that riddle has been the talk of the town on and off for years. Mrs. Patel came out from behind the desk. Come, let me show you something. She led Mia to a display case in the corner of the museum. Inside was a faded photograph of a group of men standing in front of a partially constructed building. That's the courthouse being built in 1870, Mrs. Patel explained. And that man there, she pointed to a Chinese man standing slightly apart from the others, is your great-great-grandfather, Thomas Chen. He was a skilled stoneworker who helped create many of the decorative elements on the building. Mia leaned closer. The man in the photograph was serious-looking with a thin mustache and work clothes. It was strange to think she was related to someone from so long ago. The riddle has fascinated people for generations, Mrs. Patel continued. We have a whole file of theories and attempts to solve it. Would you like to see? For the next hour, Mia sat at a table in the back of the museum, going through a folder of papers, letters, notes, and maps, all related to Thomas Chen's riddle. Some were yellowed with age while others were printed from emails just a few years old. So nobody's ever figured it out? Mia asked when she finished reading. Mrs. Patel shook her head. Not as far as we know. Most people eventually decide it's just a legend with no real answer. But every few years someone new gets interested and tries again. She smiled at Mia. Maybe you'll be the one to solve it. As Mia walked home, her mind was buzzing with all she'd learned. The riddle wasn't just a family curiosity. It was a town mystery. And now, she was determined to be the one to finally solve it. She stopped in front of the old courthouse, looking up at its stone facade. The eagle statue stood proudly out front, exactly as her mother had described. But the big pine tree across the street was gone, replaced by a small garden and benches. When shadows align with the founder's design, Mia whispered to herself, the first line of the riddle. She looked at the shadows cast by the courthouse in the afternoon sun, wondering what they might have aligned with 150 years ago. One thing was certain. This was going to be way more interesting than organizing her grandfather's attic. She had a real mystery to solve, one that had stumped everyone else in town for generations. And somewhere deep inside, Mia had a feeling she might be the one to finally figure it out. The local library became Mia's second home as summer days stretched long and hot. While other kids spent their time at the community pool or playing video games, Mia hunched over history books and old town maps, scribbling notes and drawing connections that no one else had seen before. Back again, Mr. Rivera, the librarian, greeted her with a knowing smile as she pushed through the glass doors. Your usual table is free. Mia nodded gratefully and headed to the corner table, partially hidden by the local history shelves. Over the past 2 weeks, she'd created her own little research station there. Mr. Rivera even let her leave some of her books stacked neatly at the end of the table. Overnight, a special privilege, he said, was reserved for serious researchers. Today, Mia had a new angle to explore. Yesterday, while having dinner with her grandfather, she'd learned something interesting about Thomas Chen. He wasn't just a stoneworker, her grandfather had told her, spooning another helping of stir-fry onto her plate. He studied astronomy in China before coming to America. He was fascinated by the stars, the moon, the movements of planets. This new piece of information had kept Mia awake half the night. What if the riddle had something to do with astronomy? What if when sun and moon share the sky as one, wasn't about an eclipse at all? She spread out her notebook and the careful copy she'd made of the riddle. She didn't bring the original journal to the library. It was too fragile and too precious to risk damaging. Instead, she'd photographed each page with her phone and made detailed notes. When shadows align with the founder's design, seek where the eagle faces the pine, count 7 stones from the water's edge, look beneath the window's ledge. When sun and moon share the sky as one, the path to the secret has begun. Mia tapped her pencil against her lip, thinking hard. If Thomas Chen was an astronomer, maybe the riddle had celestial clues. She pulled out her phone and opened a sky tracking app she'd downloaded yesterday. It showed the positions of the sun, moon, and stars at any date and time. She tried setting it for today's date, then for significant dates in the town's history. Nothing jumped out at her. She tried the summer solstice, the winter solstice, equinoxes. Still nothing that seemed to connect to the riddle. With a sigh, she set her phone down and went to get the book on local architecture she'd been reading. As she walked back to her table, she noticed a girl about her age browsing the young adult section. The girl looked up and smiled. "You're here a lot," she said. "I've seen you every time I've come in this week." Mia recognized her from school. They weren't in the same class, but she'd seen her in the hallways. "I'm working on a project," she explained. "In summer?" The girl made a face. "That's hardcore. I'm Lily, by the way. Mia, and it's not for school. It's personal research." Lily's eyes widened with interest. "Like what?" Mia hesitated. She hadn't told many people about her quest to solve the riddle. But something about Lily's genuine curiosity made her want to share. "Have you heard about the Thomas Chen riddle? The one about hidden treasure somewhere in town?" Lily's face lit up. "My dad talks about that sometimes. He says it's the town's favorite wild goose chase." She walked over to Mia's table. "Wait, are you actually trying to solve it?" "Yeah," Mia admitted. "Thomas Chen was my great-great-grandfather." "No way." Lily looked impressed. "That's so cool. Have you figured anything out?" "Not really. I'm trying to connect it to astronomy now because apparently he was into that. But I'm stuck." Lily peered at Mia's notes. "My dad's a science teacher. He knows a lot about astronomy. Maybe he could help?" That afternoon, Mia found herself sitting in Lily's kitchen, explaining her project to Mr. Taylor, who listened with growing interest. "I've heard about this riddle for years," he said, examining the copy Mia had made. "But I never knew Thomas Chen was an astronomer. That adds an interesting dimension." He focused on the line about the sun and moon sharing the sky. "This could refer to several phenomena. A solar eclipse is the obvious one, but those are rare and brief. It could also simply mean daytime when the moon is visible. That happens frequently, especially when the moon is near full." Mia frowned. "But that's not special enough to be a clue, is it? It happens all the time." "Good point," Mr. Taylor agreed. "What about specific alignments? Certain days of the year when the sun and moon appear in significant positions relative to each other?" "Let me think." He pulled out his laptop and began checking astronomical records. After several minutes, he looked up with excitement in his eyes. "There's something called a selenalion or horizontal eclipse. It's when both the eclipsed moon and the sun are visible at the same time, just above opposite horizons. It's rare because usually when one is rising, the other is setting and not visible. But under certain conditions, atmospheric refraction makes both visible simultaneously." Mia leaned forward. "Could that be what the riddle means?" "Possibly. Let me check if any occurred around the time Thomas wrote this riddle." He typed rapidly, then shook his head. "None in this area during his lifetime, as far as I can tell." Mia's shoulders slumped. "Don't give up," Mr. Taylor encouraged. "There are other possibilities. What about the rest of the riddle?" "Sometimes solving one part leads to understanding another." They discussed the other lines, but nothing definitive emerged. As Mia was getting ready to leave, Lily's father had one more thought. "You know, there's a phenomenon called the lunar standstill. It's when the moon reaches its maximum or minimum declination in its 18.6-year cycle. During this time, the moon appears to stand still at its highest or lowest point in the sky for a few days." Mia's ears perked up. "Stand still? Like when shadows align?" "Exactly. And during these times, the moon follows the same path the sun takes 6 months later. It's like they're sharing the same roadway through the sky, just at different times." For the first time in weeks, Mia felt a real breakthrough might be possible. "How can I find out when these standstills happened?" "I have a book that might help. Come by tomorrow and we'll look it up." The next day brought more research, more questions, and a growing pile of notes. By the end of the week, Mia had filled an entire notebook with observations, theories, and diagrams. But she was still missing something. The astronomical angles were promising, but they didn't fully connect to the physical locations mentioned in the riddle: the eagle, the pine, the stones, and the water's edge. On Saturday morning, she decided to visit the courthouse again. Maybe seeing it in person would spark a new idea. The old building stood proud in the morning sun, its stone facade gleaming. Mia circled it slowly, studying every detail. The eagle statue out front was easy to spot, but it faced the street, not any pine tree she could see. "It's been moved," a voice said behind her. Mia turned to see Mrs. Patel from the Historical Society Museum. "The eagle statue," Mrs. Patel clarified. It used to be on the other side of the building, facing the park where the big pine tree was. They moved it during renovations in the 1940s. Mia's heart raced. Do you know exactly where it used to be? Better than that, I can show you a photograph. Mrs. Patel gestured toward the museum. Come by when you have time. Later that day, Mia stared at a black and white photograph from 1920. The courthouse looked much the same, but the eagle statue was indeed on the western side of the building, and it faced a massive pine tree across the street. And there used to be a decorative pond in that park too, Mrs. Patel added, pointing to another photograph. It was filled in during the 1950s when they redesigned the space. Pieces were starting to fall into place. The eagle faced the pine. There was once water nearby, the pond, which could be the water's edge, mentioned in the riddle. The stones, Mia murmured. Count 7 stones from the water's edge. What stones? Mrs. Patel asked. I'm not sure yet, but I'm getting closer. That evening, Mia spread all her research across her bedroom floor. Notes, photographs, maps, and printouts of astronomical data. Her mother knocked on the open door, taking in the chaos with raised eyebrows. Looks like the riddle hunt is getting serious, she said. Mia nodded without looking up. I've found some connections, but I'm still missing something big. Her mother sat on the edge of the bed. You know, when I was trying to solve it, I got stuck on the same line you are. Count 7 stones from the water's edge. I was convinced it meant stepping stones or some path, but I never found anything that made sense. Mia chewed her lip thoughtfully. What if it's not about stepping stones? What if it's about the building stones of the courthouse itself? Her mother considered this. That's actually a good thought. Thomas Chen worked on the courthouse construction, right? He would know exactly how the stones were laid. Excitement bubbled in Mia's chest. And he was a stoneworker. Of course he would use the actual stones as part of his clue. But which stones? Her mother asked. And counting from where? Mia grabbed the journal copy. Look beneath the window's ledge, she read aloud. So we need to find a specific window on the courthouse. And, her mother added, we need to figure out what when shadows align with the founder's design means. Mia jumped up suddenly. The founder's design! William Oakley designed the original. Town layout. She dug through her papers until she found a copy of the original town plan she'd gotten from the Historical Society. Look, she pointed. The courthouse was positioned at the center of the original street grid. What if the shadows of the building align with the streets at certain times of day or year? Her mother looked impressed. That's clever thinking, Mia. But how would you figure out when that happens? I need to watch the shadows, Mia decided, at different times, and I need to line them up with this original street plan. For the next week, Mia visited the courthouse at different times of day, photographing the shadows cast by the building and comparing them to her copy of the original town plan. She started to notice patterns, particularly in how the afternoon shadows moved across the western side of the building, where the eagle statue used to be. During one of her observation sessions, she noticed Mr. Diaz, the courthouse maintenance supervisor, watching her with curiosity. She'd seen him around town before but had never spoken to him. You're Chen's granddaughter, aren't you? He called out. The one asking about the old riddle? Mia nodded, slightly surprised that news of her quest had spread. Mr. Diaz walked over, wiping his hands on a rag. I've worked in this building for 30 years, seen a lot of people come looking for that treasure. Never found anything myself, but I know this place better than anyone. Do you know about the original windows? Mia asked hopefully. The ones from when it was first built? Some are still original, some were replaced. He pointed to the western facade. Those 3 on the ground floor are original. Had to restore them carefully a few years back, keeping all the original stonework around them. Mia's pulse quickened. The stonework. Did Thomas Chen work on that part? According to the building records, yes. His name is on the work orders for the decorative elements around all the original windows. That evening, Mia couldn't sleep. She felt like she was getting closer to the answer, but there were still missing pieces. The next morning, she went back to the library and asked Mr. Rivera if they had any books specifically about the construction of the courthouse. Not books, but we have some documents in the archive room, he told her. Normally that's restricted to adult researchers, but he smiled. I think we can make an exception for you. You've shown exceptional dedication to your research. The archive room was small and climate-controlled, with special tables for examining delicate materials. Mr. Rivera brought out a box containing folders of documents related to the courthouse construction. These are copies of the originals, he explained. The actual documents are kept in a secure facility in the city, but these should have what you need. Mia spent hours going through construction records, payment vouchers, and material lists. She found several mentions of Thomas Chen, confirming that he had worked primarily on the decorative stonework around windows and entrances. One document caught her attention. A letter from Thomas to William Oakley, dated just after the courthouse was completed. It mentioned the special arrangement of the west-facing stones and your clever design that makes use of the summer light. Mia's hands trembled with excitement. This had to be relevant to the riddle. Something about the west-facing windows and the summer light. She checked her astronomical notes again. The summer solstice, the longest day of the year, was just 2 weeks away. Could that be when the shadows would align with the founder's design? She rushed to find Lily and explained her new theory. The summer solstice is when the sun reaches its highest point in the northern hemisphere, Lily said, recalling her father's astronomy lessons. It also means the sun sets at its northernmost point on the horizon. And, Mia added excitedly, it's a time when the moon is sometimes visible during the day. Let me ask my dad about the specific moon phases during this year's solstice, Lily offered. Mr. Taylor confirmed that during this year's summer solstice the moon would indeed be visible in the daytime sky, a waxing gibbous moon that would appear in the afternoon. The sun and moon sharing the sky on the day when the sun is at its most powerful, he mused. That's symbolically significant in many cultures. The next day, Mia visited the courthouse again, this time focusing on the 3 original windows on the western facade. She examined the stonework around them carefully, looking for anything unusual. The middle window had the most elaborate decorations, intricate carvings that included small stars and crescent shapes nestled among more traditional floral patterns. She took detailed photographs with her phone, then hurried to show them to her grandfather. He studied the images with interest. Those are definitely Chinese astronomical symbols, he confirmed. See this pattern here? It represents the summer solstice, and these curves here match the path of the moon during certain phases. Mia could hardly contain her excitement. Grandpa, I think I'm close to solving it. The riddle is about the summer solstice when the sun and moon are both visible. The shadows of the courthouse align with the original street grid designed by William Oakley. The eagle statue used to face the pine tree, and there was a pond nearby. Her grandfather's eyes twinkled. So what's your plan? I need to be at the courthouse on the summer solstice. I need to watch where the shadows fall, find the right window, and count 7 stones from where the pond's edge used to be. That's in 2 weeks, her grandfather reminded her. The summer solstice is June 21st. I know, Mia nodded. I'll be ready. Word of Mia's progress had spread through town. Mrs. Patel from the Historical Society called to express her interest. Mr. Diaz promised to give Mia special access to examine the windows up close. Even the mayor had heard about the 12-year-old who might finally solve Thomas Chen's famous riddle. For Mia, the growing attention was both exciting and nerve-wracking. What if she was wrong? What if she'd misunderstood the clues completely? What if there was no treasure at all? But deep down, she felt confident in her interpretation. The pieces fit together too perfectly to be coincidence. Thomas Chen had been clever, using his knowledge of astronomy, stonework, and the town's design to create a puzzle that required a particular way of thinking to solve. As the days passed, Mia refined her theory, gathering more evidence to support her conclusions. She created detailed maps showing the original location of the eagle statue, the pine tree, and the pond. She calculated exactly where the sun and moon would be in the sky on the afternoon of the solstice. The night before the big day, she sat, on her bedroom floor surrounded by her research, double-checking every detail. Her mother knocked and entered with a mug of hot chocolate. "Ready for tomorrow?" she asked, setting the mug on Mia's desk. I think so, Mia said, though her stomach fluttered with butterflies. What if I'm wrong? Her mother sat beside her. Then you've still done something amazing. You've looked at this old mystery in a way no one else has. You've connected history, astronomy, architecture, and family stories. That's impressive no matter what happens tomorrow. Mia leaned against her mother's shoulder. Thanks, Mom. For what it's worth, her mother added, I think you're going to find something. You've been more thorough and creative than anyone who's tried before, including me. As Mia drifted off to sleep that night, the riddle echoed in her mind. When shadows align with the founder's design, seek where the eagle faces the pine. Count 7 stones from the water's edge. Look beneath the window's ledge. When sun and moon share the sky as one, the path to the secret has begun. Tomorrow, she would finally discover what Thomas Chen had hidden all those years ago, and regardless of what the treasure turned out to be, she had already accomplished something remarkable. She had pieced together clues that had stumped generations of adults. With that satisfying thought, she fell asleep dreaming of shadows, stones, and secrets waiting to be revealed. The morning of the summer solstice dawned bright and clear. Mia woke up early, too excited to sleep past sunrise. She double-checked her backpack, notebook, pen, camera, copy of the original town plan water bottle, and the carefully made notes on where the old pond's edge had been. Today's the day, she whispered to herself, a mix of nervousness and excitement making her stomach flutter. Breakfast was a rushed affair. Her parents exchanged knowing smiles as she gulped down orange juice and barely touched her toast. The solstice doesn't happen until later, her father reminded her, checking his watch. You've got plenty of time. I know, but I want to get there early, Mia explained. I need to set up my observation points and double-check everything, her mother nodded. Just remember, whatever happens today, we're proud of how hard you've worked on this. Thanks, Mia said, shoving the last bite of toast into her mouth. Can we go now? Her parents had taken the day off work to accompany her to the courthouse. It wasn't just family support. By now, the whole town was buzzing with interest in Mia's solstice theory. When they arrived downtown, she was surprised to see a small crowd already gathering in the park across from the courthouse. Mrs. Patel from the Historical Society waved them over. Mia, we've set up a little command center for you. She pointed to a folding table under a tree, where maps and old photographs were spread out. I brought everything I thought might be helpful. Thanks, Mia said, feeling suddenly shy with all the attention. Mr. Diaz, the courthouse maintenance supervisor, approached with a ring of keys jangling from his belt. Morning, Chen family. Mia, I've got permission from the county to give you full access to the building today. Just tell me what you need. More people arrived as the morning progressed. Lily and her father brought additional astronomy equipment, a compass, protractor, and a device for measuring shadow angles. Mia's grandfather showed up with old family photos, including some of Thomas Chen that no one had seen before. Found these in a different box in the attic, he explained, showing Mia a sepia-toned photograph of Thomas standing proudly in front of the newly completed courthouse. Thought they might help. By noon, the crowd had grown considerably. The mayor made an appearance, shaking hands and expressing his support for this wonderful educational endeavor. Someone from the local newspaper took photos. Even Mia's teacher from school showed up, curious to see what her student had discovered. Amidst all the excitement, Mia tried to stay focused. She studied the western facade of the courthouse where the 3 original windows gleamed in the sunlight. According to her calculations, the critical moment would come around 3:30 p.m., when the sun's position would create shadows aligning with the original street grid, while the waxing gibbous moon would be visible in the eastern sky. 4 hours to go, Lily said, checking her watch. What should we do while we wait? I want to double-check the location of the old pond, Mia decided. Using the historical photographs and Mrs. Patel's expertise, they marked out where the decorative pond had once been in the park. Mr. Taylor helped them measure the distance from the courthouse to be sure they had the scale right. The old photos show it was circular, Mrs. Patel explained, about 20 feet across, with a stone border. Mia paced around the area, trying to envision how it had looked in Thomas Chen's day. And the eagle statue was originally there? She pointed to the western corner of the courthouse. Yes, right where that bench is now, Mr. Diaz confirmed. It faced directly toward the big pine tree that used to stand here. He stomped his foot on a spot near where they'd marked the edge of the pond. So if the eagle faced the pine, and we count 7 stones from the water's edge. Mia traced an invisible line from the courthouse toward the park. Her excitement growing, she hurried back to the courthouse and stood where the eagle statue had originally been placed. From there, she looked out toward the marked pond location and the spot where the pine tree had stood. Something wasn't quite right. "The line doesn't hit the window," she murmured, frowning. Mr. Diaz overheard her. "What window are you looking for?" "One of the original ones on the west side. The line from the eagle to the pine should pass by it, according to my interpretation of the riddle." Mr. Diaz scratched his chin thoughtfully. "You know, there used to be another window on this side, a smaller one. It was bricked up during renovations in the 1930s. You can still see the outline if you know where to look." Mia's heart raced. "Can you show me?" He led her to a section of the wall that at first glance looked like the rest of the stone facade. But as Mr. Diaz pointed out subtle differences in the mortar and stone pattern, Mia could see the ghostly outline of what had once been a narrow window. "It was an odd size and shape," Mr. Diaz explained. "The architects decided it didn't match the building's style, so they closed it up. But we have the original blueprints in the maintenance office." They retrieved the blueprints, and sure enough, they showed a small window positioned exactly where Mia's theoretical line would pass. Even more intriguing, according to the construction records, Thomas Chen had personally worked on the decorative stonework around this window. "This has to be it," Mia whispered, running her fingers over the blueprint. "But now it's bricked up. How can we look beneath the window's ledge if the window isn't there anymore?" Mr. Diaz studied the wall again. The ledge stone would still be there, just covered by the bricks. If we got permission, we could temporarily remove some of the outer bricks to examine it. The mayor, who had been following their progress with interest, stepped forward. "This is a historic building, so we'd need proper approval for any alterations. But given the circumstances, I think we could expedite the process." After a flurry of phone calls and paperwork, by 2 p.m. they had secured emergency permission to carefully remove a section of bricks where the window had once been. Mr. Diaz assembled a small team of courthouse maintenance workers who began the delicate process of exposing the old window ledge without damaging the surrounding stonework. Meanwhile, Mia returned to the park to refine her measurements. Using the historical photographs and the marked pond location, she tried to determine exactly where to start counting the 7 stones mentioned in the riddle. "The riddle says, 'Count 7 stones from the water's edge,'" Lily reminded her. "But which edge?" The pond was circular. Mia thought hard, reviewing all the clues in her mind. "The line from the eagle to the pine," she said slowly. "That's our reference line. So we count 7 stones from where that line intersects the pond's edge." They measured carefully, using string to mark the straight line from where the eagle statue had stood to where the pine tree had been. Where this line crossed the circle representing the old pond's border, they placed a stake. "Now we need to count 7 stones from here," Mia said. "But what stones? There's just grass now." Her grandfather, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "There used to be a stone path from the courthouse to the pond. I remember it from when I was a boy. It was removed when they redesigned the park, but it ran almost exactly where your string is." This was a new piece of information that excited Mia. A stone path. That must be what the riddle means. Count 7 stones along the path. Mrs. Patel rushed back to the Historical Society and returned with more photographs showing the old stone path. It consisted of large, flat stones set into the ground at regular intervals. By comparing these with modern measurements, they were able to calculate where the 7th stone would have been. Mr. Diaz marked the spot with spray chalk. It was about 15 feet from the courthouse wall, directly in line with where the hidden window had been. "But there's nothing here now," Lily said, looking disappointed. "Just grass." "The riddle doesn't say the treasure is at the 7th stone," Mia pointed out. "It says count 7 stones from the water's edge. Look beneath the window's ledge." I think the 7 stones tell us which window to look at, the one that lines up with the 7th stone from the pond. As 3 p.m. approached, the crowd around the courthouse grew. Word had spread through town about Mia's discovery of the hidden window and the potential breakthrough in the century-old mystery. People brought lawn chairs and picnic blankets, settling in to watch the unfolding events. The maintenance workers had carefully removed enough bricks to expose the old window ledge, a substantial piece of carved limestone that had survived intact behind the brick infill. Mia examined it closely, running her fingers along the smooth, worn surface. "See anything unusual?" her father asked, peering over her shoulder. Mia shook her head. "Not yet. But the riddle says when shadows align with the founder's design, when sun and moon share the sky as one. I think we need to wait for the right moment." Mr. Taylor checked his astronomical instruments. "The moon is already visible," he pointed out, gesturing to the pale crescent visible in the eastern sky. "And it will still be up when the sun reaches the position you calculated." At 3:15 p.m., Mia positioned herself where the eagle statue had originally stood and watched as the sun continued its western arc. The shadows of the courthouse began to stretch across the park, growing longer by the minute. "Look!" Lily suddenly exclaimed, pointing to the ground. The shadow of the courthouse's western edge was aligning perfectly with one of the original streets on their map, the founder's design. Mia checked her watch. 3:27 p.m. Almost time. Everyone gathered around the exposed window ledge as the sun's angle changed. At exactly 3:33 p.m., something remarkable happened. The shadow of a decorative stone finial on the courthouse roof fell precisely across the window ledge, creating a distinct pattern of light and shadow. "It's an arrow!" Someone in the crowd gasped. Indeed, the shadow formed a perfect arrow shape pointing to a specific spot on the ledge. As everyone watched in amazement, Mia carefully examined where the shadow arrow pointed. There, almost invisible unless you were looking for it, was a small carving in the stone, a Chinese character partially hidden by years of weathering. "What does it say?" Lily asked breathlessly. Mia's grandfather stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. "It's the Chinese character for beneath or under," he translated. Thomas was giving an additional clue. Mr. Diaz brought a flashlight and shone it on the ledge. "There's something else here. Look at how the stone is fitted. This section seems different." Upon closer inspection, they discovered that a small rectangular section of the ledge was actually a separate piece, fitted so perfectly that it had gone unnoticed for generations. With extreme care and using specialized tools provided by the Historical Society, they were able to lift the small stone section. Beneath it was a hollow space carved into the larger stone ledge. And inside that space was a small metal box, tarnished with age but still intact. A hush fell over the crowd as Mr. Diaz carefully extracted the box and handed it to Mia. It was surprisingly heavy for its size, about the dimensions of a thick hardcover book. "You should do the honors," he said. "You solved the riddle." With trembling hands, Mia took the box. The lid was stuck from years of being sealed away, but with a little effort, it finally opened with a soft creak. Inside, wrapped in yellowed silk, was a leather-bound book similar to Thomas Chen's journal but larger and more ornate. Alongside it was a folded document on thick parchment and a small velvet pouch. Mia carefully removed the book first, opening it to reveal pages of beautiful Chinese calligraphy, interspersed with English text and detailed drawings. From what she could make out, it appeared to be a record of astronomical observations made over many years, including calculations, star charts, and notes about seasonal changes. "This is incredible," Mr. Taylor whispered, peering over Mia's shoulder. "These are scientific observations from the 1800s. This could be valuable to historians of astronomy." Next, Mia unfolded the parchment document. It was a land deed, dated 1875, transferring ownership of a parcel of land from William Oakley to Thomas Chen. Attached to it was a smaller note in Thomas's handwriting. "This deed represents the first land in Oak Ridge officially owned by a Chinese immigrant. William Oakley sold it to me at great personal risk, as the laws of the time restricted such transactions. This act of friendship and equality should be remembered as part of our town's true history." Mrs. Patel gasped. "This is a significant historical document. It shows that Oak Ridge had progressive elements even during a time of terrible anti-Chinese sentiment in America." Finally, Mia opened the velvet pouch. Inside was a brass key with an intricate design on its handle, and a small jade pendant carved in the shape of a crescent moon. Another note, folded tightly to fit in the pouch, explained, "The key opens a chest in my home containing personal treasures from China that I hope will remain in my family for generations. The pendant was given to me by my father before I left China. It represents the universal language of the heavens that connects all people under the same sky." Mia looked up at her grandfather, Do we still have this chest? He nodded slowly, eyes wide with realization. There's an old Chinese chest in the attic that no one has been able to open for as long as I can remember. We always assumed the key was lost decades ago. The crowd erupted in excited chatter. The mayor stepped forward to address everyone. This is a remarkable day for Oak Ridge. Thanks to the extraordinary efforts of young Mia Chen, we have uncovered not just a family treasure but an important piece of our town's history. These documents will help us better understand and appreciate the contributions of the early Chinese community to our town's development. As the initial excitement settled, experts from the Historical Society carefully documented and photographed everything before the items were placed in protective containers. It was agreed that while the astronomical journal and jade pendant would remain with the Chen family, the land deed would be donated to the Historical Society Museum where everyone could learn from it. Later that evening, as the sun set on the longest day of the year, Mia sat on her grandfather's porch swing, still processing the day's events. "You did what generations of people couldn't do," her grandfather said proudly. "You solved Thomas's riddle." "I had help," Mia replied modestly. "Yes, but you were the one who put it all together. You saw connections others missed. You thought differently." Mia fingered the jade pendant which her grandfather had insisted she should keep. "Why do you think Thomas made the riddle so complicated? Why hide these things with such an elaborate puzzle?" Her grandfather considered the question. "I think he wanted to make sure the right person found them. Someone who would appreciate not just the items themselves, but the knowledge and history they represent. Someone curious and persistent enough to see beyond the obvious. Like you," her mother added, joining them on the porch. "He was looking for someone like you." The following day, they took the brass key to the old chest in the attic. It turned smoothly in the lock, as if it had been waiting all these years for the right person to find it. Inside were more family treasures, photographs, letters, traditional Chinese garments, and astronomical instruments that Thomas had brought from China. Each item told part of his story, and the journey that had brought him to America and eventually to Oak Ridge. As news of Mia's discovery spread beyond the town, reporters from regional newspapers came to interview her. The university's astronomy department expressed interest in studying Thomas's journal. The State Historical Society requested permission to include the story in an upcoming exhibition about immigrant contributions to the region. But for Mia, the most valuable outcome wasn't the attention or even the historical significance of what she'd found. It was the connection she now felt to her great-great-grandfather, a man who, like her, had looked at the world with curiosity and saw patterns where others didn't. One evening, as she read through Thomas's astronomical journal by lamplight, she came across an entry that brought tears to her eyes. "The heavens speak a universal language. Stars do not recognize borders or prejudices. Perhaps someday my descendants will look up at the same moon I observed tonight and understand that wisdom comes not from following others' paths but from finding your own way by the light of the stars." Mia looked out her window at the night sky, where the moon hung bright among countless stars. Thomas Chen had created a puzzle that had stumped experts, scientists, and historians for generations. And she, a 12-year-old girl who everyone thought was just going through a summer phase, had solved it. Not because she was smarter than everyone else, but because she had looked at the problem differently. She had connected disciplines, history, astronomy, architecture, in ways others hadn't considered. She had been willing to question assumptions and follow her intuition. Her mother had been right all along. The true treasure wasn't gold or jewels. It was knowledge, history, and the reminder that sometimes the most complex problems are solved not by those with the most experience, but by those who bring a fresh perspective. Mia carefully closed the journal, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Summer in Oak Ridge no longer seemed boring at all. In fact, with all of Thomas's journals to read and his astronomical observations to understand, it promised to be the most interesting summer of her life.